All right. Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Girls in STEAM Tracking the Cure. My name is Hiba, and I'll be your host for today's session. We will wait for just about one more minute, a couple more seconds until we get a couple more people rolling in. But in the meantime, if you wanted to put in the chat where you're joining us from today, we would love to hear. Again, we'll start in about 30 seconds, and we're excited to get it going. All right. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Tracking the Cure. My name is Hiba, and I'll be the host for today's panel. I would like to begin by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We will start today with a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors, followed by a hosted discussion. If you have any questions or comments for the mentors, please feel free to put those in the chat at any time. Our technician today is Courtney, who will be monitoring the chat. If you have any technical issues, they would be happy to assist. We ask that you keep the comments in the chat and question section respectful and relevant to the ongoing discussions. Now it's time to meet our mentors. Let's start by going around and doing a brief introduction before we jump into the questions. Mentors, if you could turn on your cameras, we'll bring you on screen, and you're already on screen. That's awesome. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So we'll start by doing a little bit of an introduction. So could we get your name, maybe your job title, and a little bit about what you do and your favorite part of your career? So Christy, I have you on screen first.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Christy Kerr. I am the Executive Director of the BC CDC Foundation for Public Health. We are a registered charity, a charitable organization working with partners like the BC Centre for Disease Control and other public health partners to basically try to improve the health of our communities and our population in British Columbia. What is the favorite thing about my work? I think my favorite part of my job is just how diverse it is, and public health as a field just touches so many things, and I get to work with so many great people that bring such great perspectives, and get to work in some really cool areas of health.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Yuka, you're next on my screen.
Hi, my name is Yuka Takamon. I'm a PhD candidate in Dr. Marco Mara's lab at Canada's Michael Smith Genome Sciences Centre, which is located actually at BC Cancer. And there I use computational, or I use something called bioinformatics, which is a method to use programming language to look at tumor DNA to try to identify different mutations and possibly cures for different cancers. And my favorite part of my job, or studies, you could say, is the fact that I have this freedom to look at different aspects of cancer genomics and potentially even find cures for different cancers. So that possibility is very exciting for me every day. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then last but not least, I have Arzu on my screen.
Hi, I'm located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and my background is basically molecular biology, gene regulation, anything you can think about the cell biology. And latest, I advanced my career working on stem cell technologies and genome editing, kind of re-engineering the genome of animals to mimic disease models for human disease. So right now, I am building up a kind of research team that to use the tools, what I know, to apply to the diagnostics for the vulnerable populations. So I am open to any questions to share my expertise, what I have, and also the excitement and curiosity, what do you want to do for the future? Thank you.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much. So a reminder to our audience that if you have any questions for our mentors, feel free to pop it in the chat or just go ahead and ask. And just a reminder to keep any questions or comments that you have respectful and relevant to the discussion that is ongoing. Awesome. So we're very, very excited to dive into basically what you do. So our first set of questions will maybe focus a little bit more on your career path and how you got here and what your day-to-day career looks like. So we'll go the other way around. So Arzu, I'll ask you first, how did you get started in the career that you are in right now?
Okay, I'm not originally from Canada, and my home is Turkey. I'm born. In those times, we had dark times in Turkey. Dark times outside world made me to read more with the encouragement of my dad, who arranged a book for me, scientific book, monthly based. And there was something over there, genetics, molecular biology, the first preliminary aspect. So it was a dream that I never would think that I will be enrolled with later in my career. When even though I went to the med school program, all I wanted to work on genetics and identify things, genes, how they are regulated. How come we have only one template gene and somehow we have species, plants, and animals, and everything is different and colorful. And all I was wondering how the things are happening. So those dark times, curiosity turned into a kind of excitement later on in my career that with the discovery of some of the enzymes and technologies. And then I said, that's it. That is where I want to go. And that is how I did my master's in clinical genetics. And when the time was right for me, I decided on to do more molecular biology. So the little things unconsciously giving to me through my dad to make me feel better while the outside of the world, some chaos was going on. So that is how I started. And now with the years pass by, and I believe that the early stage of your life, whatever you're exposed, it creates a curiosity and makes you wonder, and then it takes you somewhere else. That's how I started.
Thank you for sharing. And what a lovely tidbit. I'm so glad that you were able to kind of find that inspiration and spark in science in you and, really take that and run with it throughout your whole career. That's lovely to hear. Yuka, I would love to hear what a typical day at work looks like, if you even have a typical day. I think a common theme is that typical days may not exist for a lot of people.
Well, these days I'm working from home. And so my typical day is not as exciting as it used to be with the lack of commute to work. But for me, because I use a lot of programming to decipher genetics, I spend a lot of time in front of the computer and basically sifting through thousands, maybe millions of data points and trying to make sense of all the different patterns. And to be able to make those connections, I have to read a lot of literature that are published by other researchers in the field. And this literature, it doesn't stay put. It actually keeps moving. There's new literature every single day. So there's so much to read every day to keep up with the sciences, especially in cancer genomics. So I spend my days reading a lot, programming a lot, and trying to make sense and connecting the two together. But also one really important aspect of what I do is communicating what I'm finding. So part of it is communicating to my group what I'm discovering or identifying, and then other ways of communication would be at big conferences and communicating to other scientists, sharing with them why my work is important and why they may want to collaborate with me. So it's a lot of reading and communicating.
Thank you so much. I think you actually brought some great nuggets of advice there that leads right into my next question for Christy. So you brought up reading and communicating, which are two very important skills. And Christy, I'm wondering if you can elaborate. Do reading and communicating show up in your day-to-day work? And what other kinds of skills do you use in your job?
Reading and communicating, you betcha. That's a big part of my work. That spark for curiosity as well. That's really important in my work. So I'm lucky that I get to touch on like tons of different aspects in my day. So my days are a little bit crazy. They kind of bounce around for a lot of different things, but definitely have to stay on top of what's happening in public health and the health of our communities, and really sort of understanding how the public is perceiving that. So we do a lot of public education and public awareness. So that kind of communicating is really important, and being able to, take some difficult concepts and try to distill them down into more digestible, bite-sized pieces. So that's important. So yeah, the reading and communicating, and just really staying on top of public health. I get to engage with so many different people in my day too. So we may do some fundraising. I may get to work with my government partners and talk about, these big provincial priorities and strengthening public health, and how we really can help the health of the population of our province. So and I have finance responsibility. So I wear lots of different hats in my day, and I really enjoy that. I think it adds like a sense of adventure to everything that I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So our next question maybe is it's a big question. I'm sure, throughout your career that you've worked up to, there were a lot of challenges kind of leading up to it. And I'm sure even in your field and industry that you are at the moment, there are a lot of challenges in there. So I'm going to leave this question open to anybody who would love to jump on. But I was hoping if you would be able to just touch on what you feel is kind of a big challenge in your field and your industry at the moment. Or if you would like to talk about challenge kind of when you were coming up in your career, that would be awesome too.
I'm happy to jump in. I think understanding what public health is, and really that's just us, looking at the health of groups as opposed to individuals. So that group can be a community, it can be the whole population of BC, it can be the whole world. So if you think about it from that perspective, you can probably guess what one of my biggest challenges has been over the last 2 years, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic, and trying to help address that in the best ways that we can. We also work to try to address the overdose crisis, which is our other public health emergency in British Columbia, and so that's pretty big work as well. In my career, and just sort of in my career path, I've had quite an interesting career path, and so making some of the decisions to get to where I am has been really interesting, and starting out sort of more on front lines global health work, and now finding myself being part of sort of this organizational and structural level of public health decision making for the province. So that's, I would say, the challenge, but also really incredible opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in as well. In terms of challenges in my industry or in my field of cancer genetics, it would be challenge in being able to find a cure for every individual. There isn't. Some individuals may not benefit from what is currently standard of care. So standard of care is, for example, if someone comes in as a breast cancer patient, there's a protocol that physicians have to follow, and to give them these sets of drugs. But if a patient doesn't respond to those drugs, then what happens? So then there are things called personalized cancer genomics. This is a clinical trial that a patient can be enrolled in, where they get their tumor sequenced, and compare it to their normal blood sample so we can identify what is it that's special about this tumor that makes it grow so quickly, which is one of the natures of cancer and why it's so lethal. And even if we're able to identify what is unique with that about that cancer, we don't really have the answer, have a solution at times. And so the challenge really is being able to identify solutions for every cancer patient, which is something that we're not able to achieve at the moment. But, there's a lot of people working on it. So that is the current challenge. And in terms of my personal career trajectory, getting to this place has been a lot of twists and turns. I didn't think I would end up studying cancer genetics. I initially started with an interest in marine biology. I used to be a part of this environmental group where we surveyed the health of coral reefs. We looked at the effects of coral bleaching and measured the amount of bleaching that was occurring over time. And so that really got me interested in biology. And after a few steps here and there and learning about what genetics meant, I went from looking at corals to looking at these stingrays or skates, to look at human blood diseases, to studying chronic kidney disease in mice, and now to looking at human cells and cancers. So it's definitely unexpected and challenging because I didn't know where I was going to end up. Yeah.
Thank you. Arzu, did you have anything else to add on?
Especially after Yuko mentioned about her field and how she evolved in it, and she's in a very complex field with the computational analysis to discover what's happening with the cancer biology. And I have to admit, maybe the last 8 years in my career is everything is high speed with the technology. It's going on and on. And with the stem cell technologies, I can't speak about it, but I felt at the very beginning while I was trying to learn things and establish tools to modulate the genes and to create humanized version or human genes and integrate into the mouse genome and create transgenic animals to do work and understand the cancer biology or developmental biology related to a number of the function of the genes. The technology has evolved so much and now without need or the need of using those animals experimentally, the new technology is providing the stem cell research using in petri dish and creating mini organs or very closely related to the human tissues that we can use. We can create an environment or small miniature organs to be able to screen for the drugs or to be able to identify some genetic material or what it is going on in the cell, protein level or expression level, which Yuko basically is doing the entire kind of in the machine system, analyzing the data and trying to make the sense of it. So the challenging part is just you have to keep up with the technology and the time, and you have to not only to sit and study to learn, you have to be more kind of patient enough to get all that information, digest it, and communicate and share and follow the publications. That's quite becoming challenging, actually. What it is, our job is, maybe we are getting old. I have to speak for myself. It is that challenges while they are coming with the technologies and knowledge and information. We have to guide the new coming generation to kind of channel them and teach them and show the path that how they can get to a certain point quicker and focus on to things that they can get something out of it more. So what the excitement is coming when the new people are coming, the technologies are advanced, and we can do things closest to human studies without doing too much harm to the animal research. So we can come up with the good things that it is more exciting, not only the challenge, but also the excitement of that challenge. So that is why those are the things that I always keep in my mind.
Thank you so much. And I think all three of you brought up such big tidbits of important advice there. I think both you and Christy, I think you talked about kind of having a lot of those twists and turns, and how your path is not linear to what you do, and you discover it as you go along. And Arzu, you talked about kind of getting things ready for the next generation, and having that line of communication between and that circular process of research to keep mentoring and passing it on. And I think those two issues, I think, are, at least for me, they were a really big misconception in science for me. When I started to go into science, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have my life figured out when I'm in high school, and it's just one straight path. And that I felt that science might be, scientists work kind of in a box, and they don't tell each other, and they don't help out each other. And that's definitely not a case. So before, I was wondering for our next question, if you had any other kind of common misconceptions that people might have about the work that you do, or about being scientists, and how can we combat those misconceptions and communicate more effectively? I might leave this open for this one, if anybody wanted to jump in on this one as well.
I'll start if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the misconception in my field, it would be that there would be a lot of successes. Any experiment that you do, you're going to get this awesome answer. You're going to get your question answered using that experiment. But honestly, I think 90% of the time, it's all failures. And every experiment won't answer any question, but it would actually open up more questions to answer. And so part of it is a lot of problem solving. Sorry, there's a little bit of background noise. So there's a lot of problem solving and a lot of adversity, in terms of, you got to be able to swallow your pride and just move on with all the failures, and try to take that as a lesson to figure out what that next question would be. So I think, the misconception is that we have the answers to everything. In fact, we have a lot of negative answers, and we have to use that to guide us into whatever the right direction is.
Awesome.
I totally agree with you, Ka. And also, the thing is, the curiosity brings patience. And knowing that in science, research, I don't want to call it science, in research, if you really want to make things, and you have to accept the failures, but it doesn't mean that the failure is truly the meaning of the word. It's it's the result and outcome, and you search for it. You try to find the right path, that what it is right or true, and later on you try to validate what you found it, or you have to. It is a kind of ongoing circle, and as long as you have the motivation and also the curiosity, you can overcome that repetitive the trait. So that is the distinction in research, that how far you can be strong enough to keep going. But at the same time, Yuko's story is she changed different fields. So one expertise she gained from one area, she was able to transfer it to another area, and then communicate with the communications and with collaborations. She has a fantastic outcome, which she's going to do more. So that is the beauty as well too. I'm not looking negatively. I was that thinking way was boxy. Now it's more positive.
From my perspective, so can relate to all of that. And I think that, a misconception that I had when I was younger and thinking about my career was that it did have to be kind of linear. And I actually thought of marine biology too. I was fascinated. I loved it. And then I actually ended up totally zagging and deciding I was going to be a writer. And then I zagged back and was like, no, I'm going to I do want to do science. And then I had this idea that I was going to do science because I wanted to be in health, and that must mean that I was going to be a researcher, a doctor, or a nurse, or something clinical. And it really actually wasn't until I finished my undergrad in science that I really started looking around at what health fields could mean and what that could look like. And so for me, that was a misconception of sort of thinking that there were these areas that I should go into because I wanted to be in health. And what I really, really realized is that there's so much that you can do in health, research, science, all of it. And it's not linear, and it's totally okay to zig and zag. And everything that I have done, even if I've zagged, has got me to where I am. My writing degree has actually served me incredibly well, even though I'm not, using it to be a writer. So I think that is, speaking from my experience, a misconception I had, and is probably a common one as we're all growing up and trying to think about things. So I would just really, really encourage everyone to just be okay with finding what works, and that it will all benefit your career throughout.
Thank you so much, Christy. And yeah, I think we were talking before this event for everyone at home, all three of us, and we were saying how events like these really, really show that not everything is linear. There are so many people here who have had those differing career paths, and for the audience at home, you're doing a great first step by being here and listening to everybody here today. So Yuka, we actually have a question for you from the chat from Nikola Tesla. They were wondering, like whales, is it possible for humans to have a high number of tumor suppressor genes?
I actually, when I was looking at studying marine biology, I never looked at the genetics. So I don't know much about whale genetics and how many tumor suppressor genes they may have. But I guess I'll, for everyone else, explain what tumor suppressor genes are. In cancer, we kind of categorize genes that, for example, have mutations in two different categories. So one we call tumor suppressor genes, and another we call oncogenes. So when oncogenes acquire a mutation, they kind of turn on and they express their genes. So when a gene expressed, they make RNA and they make protein, and that protein does stuff. So that oncogene turns on and expresses a lot of that, a lot of the RNA and protein, and then that is what leads to the cancerous effects. And so with oncogenes, they're much easier to target than tumor suppressor genes because you can use a drug to inhibit that expression and you can lower the effects. Whereas tumor suppressor genes, they work a little bit differently. So the name itself says it's a tumor suppressor. So when you have a mutation in a tumor suppressor gene, and this gene can no longer express, so there's essentially no more function of this tumor suppressor gene. So that tumor suppressor gene, what it's doing is actually suppressing the bad cancerous effects. So if you don't have this particular function, then that can cause cancer. So when you have, well, I guess the thing is with humans, we can't acquire more genes than we have. We have what's in our DNA already. We can't add to it unless you want to genetic engineer, but there's a lot of ethical issues around that. So we can't acquire more genes per se. But what we can take from whales, for example. So for example, maybe not whales, but let's think about elephants who live for a very long time and they don't develop cancer. So what are some things that we can learn from them that we can use for human health? So those are the type of things that we can translate into human health. But I'm not quite sure. So it's not possible for people to acquire new genes, but we can use different aspects that we learn from other animals and translate that into human health.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What a great example of scientific communication that we've been chatting about a little bit about today. So I think we're reaching up to kind of our last couple minutes. So what I'll do is I'm going to do one rapid fire round to everybody of questions, and then we'll do one kind of big question to end it all. And then for everyone at home, please feel free, any last minute questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. So my rapid fire question, I will start with Christy. Oh my gosh, yeah, okay, there we go. I forgot my question, but I got it now. I think we've heard about your work in public health, but we'd love to hear something that you're excited to see happen in the next 5 years in your industry.
Oh, well, that feels like a big question, not rapid fire. So I think that a number of things need to happen, and there's some exciting things. And while the last few years have been very, very difficult with the pandemic, we actually have an incredible opportunity to learn from a lot of what we've experienced through the pandemic, and to use that opportunity to really strengthen our healthcare and public health systems in the province. So 5 years out, we may find that we have better systems and infrastructure and resources to better prepare for something like COVID-19, or to address, other emerging threats that may arise. So I could go on, but I won't. So I'll just leave it at that. But I think overall, just really really starting to focus our efforts and our energies on the public health side of things, and making sure that we have that awareness and that investment, and starting to think about how to prevent things and prepare and respond.
Thank you so much. Arzu, I would love to hear, if you were freshly starting at the job or in the research that you currently are, what's one thing you wish somebody had told you?
Oh,
maybe also another big question. Maybe these are all pretty good questions.
I
No
know.
such thing as a rapid fire question, I think, in Girls in STEM today.
The thing is, with the manual in research, like if you want to stay in, then nowadays things are different, and we didn't have too much biotechnology companies as it is right now in Canada, including the Vancouver site and all West Coast and East Coast. There are a lot of biotechnology companies are built up, and they're doing a lot of good work. The mentality I had from the very beginning to be in science, especially stem cell technologies, genome editing, I had to be in academia. I had to be in university. But as I said, the last 8 years, the movement is so big, and the private companies pumped up all around the world. And science, when the science with the technology improvements gets combined together with the stem cell technology, I realized that you don't have to be in academics. You don't have to be academia, kind of in the environment to work on things and discoveries, but those discoveries can be done outside of the academia as well too. So if I put myself as a big starter, because I don't want to answer that question according to the old time, I would say I would think more that there are outside of the academia, research of academia, what it is there out there, and you can enjoy. You can integrate multiple skill set from computational to wet lab skills and combine them together. I wish somebody would tell me that there are other things other than academia. Like focus on other the companies that which has this technology, and I would maybe look at more. And I see with the new coming generation, new scientists, they have to be more independent, more adventurous with all around the world, even to move wherever they want to move and go to those companies and take the lead in the research. They don't have to be in academia anymore. That is, I wish somebody would tell me like that. But I didn't have that kind of stage. So, but that is right now, every student whom I mentor, I give that kind of projection and advice.
Exactly. You're telling the students here today, or our audience today, which is very helpful.
Again, the box thinking for what academia is even changing nowadays. So for the translation of the research is important. Commercialization of what it is translated in research is important, especially for public health or other research fields. And that is what I'm saying. I wish somebody would say, but if at that time period, it wouldn't work. But the reality is right now, the sky is rocket, like everything is everywhere, but you can have opportunities to go adventure for the research and science. That's all I can say.
Thank you. And then Yuka, my question for you, are there people who inspired you or helped you along the way throughout your journey to where you are today at BC Cancer?
There are always role models for sure. But I wouldn't say I really identified with them. So I'm Japanese, and if you haven't noticed from my pronouns, I'm also queer and working. So when I joined this field, I had moved from Japan to the States for college, I ended up in a state of Maine, which is a very Caucasian state, and I always felt a little bit out of place in terms of who my mentors were. Of course, there were lots of very inspiring people, but I just personally couldn't really relate to their life path. So I found finding a mentor that I can relate to a bit challenging. But regardless, I feel like a lot of people gave me a chance. They helped me identify what I was good at or what I wasn't good at, and guiding me towards a direction that just eventually helped me to get to the position that I am in right now. So I would say that there wasn't one single person that helped me. A lot of people helped me in so many different aspects. So I would say in terms of mentors, I think, or to find a good mentor, you really have to look around you and see what is it about a person that you think is very admirable, and try to not imitate in the exact sense, but just to say, okay, so I really admire this person's communication skills, or I really admire this person's way of teaching. How can I emulate those skills and grow from it? So I think mentors, I found to be, I've never found that one person, but it's a collection of a lot of people that I found inspiring.
Thank you so much, and that's lovely to hear. I think that's a great sentiment to share with everybody as well. Just highlighting kind of that importance of having those people and identifying those skills there. So as we're wrapping up, we have time maybe for one more last question or closing question to wrap things up. So our audience today is 14 to 16-year-old future scientists and future leaders. So I was wondering, as closing advice, what is advice that you would give to our audience that's watching today? Arzu, we can start with you, and then we'll go to Yuka and then Christy.
Curiosity, and be excited what you are doing, because I am the believer of whatever you want, you can learn and accomplish. It's all about determination and curiosity and persistence. And if you don't have the persistence, your motivation always starts and goes. That is those three things I always I will always indicate to the students whom I mentor. And also, don't be hesitant and don't be afraid of anything, and take those what you have fear, try to turn into learning and learning experience. That's all. When you start to learn or to understand, you will overcome those fear, and you will accomplish more. It doesn't matter wherever you do in science or research. That is what I would give a kind of advice.
Thank you. Go ahead, Yuka.
For me, I think the advice that I would give would also be curious, and follow that curiosity, because there's nothing worse than doing something every day that you don't like. You really want to do something that you love and you feel passionate about, and that gets you excited every morning, and gets you up from your bed. So definitely be curious, follow that curiosity, wherever it may lead. And also, don't be afraid to reach out to people to help you get opportunities, because even if you feel like, oh, they're so high up in an organization, oh, they would never respond to me, but if they don't, someone else might, and you never know what opportunity that you might open for yourself. So be independent, be courageous, and yeah, just reach out to people, because people oftentimes like helping others. So don't be afraid to reach out to other people.
Thank you so much. And to round us off, Christy.
Well, it's very hard to follow, Arzu and Yuka. I would completely agree with everything that was just said. I think that you'd be curious, absolutely. Stay curious. I think that's really important, to not let that go. Think big and think outside of the box. Like I was saying before, it doesn't have to be linear. There's lots of different ways you can go in different directions, and you can go one way and decide to go another way. I think it's just really important to have that curiosity, to be driven by that, and kind of follow your own path. There's no set path for careers. I think that, maybe 25 or 50 years ago that was different, but for us now, I think it's just that think big and follow that path that works for you. And around mentorship, reach out to people. There's so many folks out there like us who happy to have conversations and talk about things, and just really would encourage reach out, connect. Don't be scared to do that, and just try to take some risks and have some fun.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely, from all three of you, lovely golden nuggets of advice there. And thank you so much for joining us today. Personally, I loved just hearing kind of, even though all three of you are in such different fields of science, just seeing kind of your journeys and hearing similar kind of stories about your journeys and kind of similar things and viewpoints that you shared. We really appreciated it. Thank you to our audience as well for joining us today. And we're just linking some links in the chat if you're more curious to find out more information just about our mentors. So once again, we have more sessions happening on Saturday. So feel free to join us then and make sure to plan ahead what sessions you would like to attend. Thanks so much for attending, and we'll see you next time.